Okay, all the push rods are all blown out with high pressure. I took a flashlight and looked through the push rod holes, make sure there's nothing in there. They all look real clean. Then I put this Cleveite, it's assembly lube. And what I did is I just put it on just the tips of the push rods. Didn't really put it in a hole, just on the outside, kind of like. So also I put this this old spacer that I taped up with that Gorilla tape, because I don't want nothing falling down my intake manifold now, because I got this thing all together now. I don't want no bolts falling down the intake manifold. I don't want no bolts falling down the distributor hole. I don't want no bolts falling down here anyways. The studs that hold the rocker arms on is little 12-point nuts. Here more. 12-point nuts. You can see they're nuts. 12-point nut. These have to be torqued down to exactly what they tell you. They tell it between 25 and 28 pounds. So anytime you're working with the rocker arm geometry, you always go by. I know when I tighten down my alternator and AC compressor and all that stuff, I tighten it down as tight as I can get it. Probably over torqued it with Loctite. I can get away with that. Rocker arm geometry, you go by exactly what you're supposed to do. Torque it down to exactly what they tell you to do, because that'd be in trouble. So anyways, let me try to get the camera so I can show you what's happening here. So you probably see a little bit of that kind of dripping down there, the Cleveite. But if you look on the push rods, I don't have any in the holes, just on the outside. Just on the outside of the holes, nothing inside the holes. Be afraid it might plug it up. I doubt it, but you never know. I don't want to take no chances. So that's why you see me always using oil, not a solid lube. So I'm gonna try to get this straight for you, so you can kind of see what I'm doing. I do have ARP Ultra Torque on these studs, but you gotta be real careful because the way the rocker arms are, they sit in this kind of a pocket that's a machine half a moon pocket, and if you get any kind of ARP Ultra Torque in that pocket, it'll hold the rocker arm up, and it might throw your geometry off. I don't know, so I'm real careful about what I use on there, because the way this is designed, the way it's designed here is that shaft sits in that pocket. So you gotta be careful with any kind of dirt or anything you don't have in the pocket. You know, the ARP Ultra Torque could do the same thing. You know, might hold it up, and then you know you might find yourself rocker arms loosening up. Okay, so you can see it. My rocker arms are marked. Okay. So this is pretty simple. 1 and 2. 1 and 2. 1 and 2. Okay. This goes on just like this. Just like that. Okay. I gotta make sure the push rod is down in the pocket of the lifter, which I check them with my high powered light to make sure that they're right where they're right where they're supposed to be. But let's just check this one more time. So this one's not in the pocket. Well, I check them all. Make sure all the push rods are in the pocket of the lifter. Okay, We look good. Let's try it again. Okay, so slide that onto the studs. It's easy. And then you gotta make sure the push rod is in the pocket of the rocker arm. Okay. So I can tell by looking at it that the lifter is on the high side of the cam. So what we gotta do is we gotta spin the motor so that the lifters are down. All the way down. And now this one's coming up. So you gotta be careful now, because as you're spinning the motor, you could bind the push rod onto the rocker arm, and being the fact that they're not tightened down, you can jam the rocker arm on the studs, which I think I might have just did. So I gotta turn the motor over and back the other way. No, I think so. Sure as look like I did that. Well, let's keep going the other way. There we go. So, was loose. Sometimes these things they bind up. They're real easy to bind up. So, anyways, let's pull this completely off until both push rods. Until I get both push rods all the way down. Which means the lifters will be on the downside. That's how I'm gonna hold this push rods into place. Keep spinning the motor. So both lifters are down. Okay, so both lifters are down. And take my high power light. Make sure they're back in the pocket again. They are. Okay. Let's try it again. So, there it is. So make sure that the lifters are. Make sure the push rods are in the pocket of the rocker arms. My wrench on the floor. That's what that loud noise was. So let's not keep the wrench on the motor. We'll keep it off the motor. And so, take 3 of the nuts, and put them on. So now I know my push rods are in the pocket of the rocker arms, and the lifters are not on the top of the cam lobe. They're all the way down. They're on the flat side of the cam. Flat side of the cam lobe. So I never touched the adjustment the way I had it when I took it off. So technically, they should be already set for what I set them for, 6 thousandths, technically, if I get lucky. So I take the torque wrench, and I torque these like I torque everything else. I'm going to start at 5, there's 5. This one I'm going to go to 5. There's 5. To the middle one I'm going to go to 10. There's 10. There's 10. There's 10. I'll go to 15. There's 15. There's 15. There's 15. I'll go to 20. There's 20. 20. 20. And last but not least, 25. That's what these are torqued. 25. 25. 25. You can go to 28 on these. I want to go just a little bit. Make sure my torque wrench dial is at 0. And then I'm going to go just a little bit past 25. Just a smidge. A little bit past 25. So I'm around 20. Okay. I don't got no play on that one. I got play on the other one. But, so anyways, once I set all these, I'm not going to make you watch all that because this is going to take some time. Then I'm going to show you how to properly lash your valves. But me putting these rocker arms on, this is going to take some time. And then I'm going to show you the proper way to set your valve lash. I got a little bit of lash on one, nothing on the other, so they are going to have to be all set. Okay, we'll see you soon. Hello, this is John again from Poor Man's Garage. Okay, our rocker arm are all tightened down. The rocker arms, shaft rockers to the pads. So now I'm going to show you how to do proper valve lash adjustment on a full roller camshaft. Full roller rocker arms. These aren't hydraulic, and they're not solids. These are solid rollers, I guess you want to call them. Okay. Anyways, I'm kind of read it out of the book to you, and I'll kind of show you as I go along. Okay, so I'm basically going to read out of the book and then put my own little spin on it. Okay, so this is out of the CAMS catalog. So it says here, okay, this is your exhaust valve, this is your intake valve, intake exhaust. So it says, according to Competition Cam's book, it says, just spin the motor just a little bit to get both of the valves up. So that we can get it right way here. Okay, it says, rotate the crankshaft in the running direction. That's what I was doing. Rotate the crankshaft in the running direction until the exhaust pushrod begins to move upward, opening the valve. So we're going to rotate it until the exhaust pushrod goes up, or the exhaust rocker arm just goes down. So it's as soon as it starts to go down. So it says, rotate the crankshaft in the running direction until the exhaust pushrod begins to move upward, opening the valve. You can now adjust the intake lash by tightening the rocker arm nut while the proper thickness feeler, with the proper feeler. So we're going to rotate it basically until we see this exhaust valve just go down. We're going to rotate it. I'm rotating it with the big wrench here. Okay. Still rotating. This is number one cylinder we're working on. Still rotating. I'll take a little bit. Now normally I do this with a button starter. And the starter when the engine's in the car. Okay, but I'm just doing this so I can show you guys. Okay, still rotating the motor. Okay, so now you see the exhaust valve just started to go down. Okay, it just went down a little bit more. You want it just so it goes down, not too far. You don't want it to go down and then back up or all the way down. That's not what the book says. The book says when this starts to move, now you can do the lash on the intake. So the exhaust valve just starts to go down. That means you can do the intake valve lash on that same cylinder. So what they mean is you got intake and exhaust for each cylinder. So when the number one, you're working on number one intake exhaust, when that number one rocker arm just starts to go down, you can adjust the number one intake valve. Okay? So the exhaust went down a little bit, just started going down. Now you can do the valve lash on the intake valve. Which remember when I told you that I had them set originally? Now my 5000 feeler is kind of bent up, so I had the 6 in my hand. So I'm gonna try putting that 5 in there because I probably what I got set at. It's a tight 5, so it's more of a 4. But you know what? I'm gonna leave it. When this is heated up, this will be at 14 thousandths because it's a 4. A 4, how you do the feeler gauges, it should just feel a drag. You shouldn't be able to push it in hard enough that it bends up the feeler. It's improper measurement. So you want to feel a slight drag. So slight drag is a 4. Okay, so intake valve is done. So now the book's going to tell you. Let's read the book again. So now rotate the crankshaft in the running direction until the exhaust pushrod begins to move upward, opening the valve. You can now adjust the intake valve to the proper thickness with the proper feeler gauge. So we did that. Okay. To adjust the exhaust valve, rotate the crankshaft until the intake pushrod moves all the way up and goes past the top until it is 1 to 2/3 the way back down. Okay, so what that means is the intake valve, which the exhaust is down, the intake valve, which we already set, we already got the right lash. That intake valve, what we want it to do is we want the intake valve to go all the way down, and then 3/4 of the way up, we're going to do the exhaust. That's okay. So we're going to spin it. See, the exhaust is still going down, still going down, still going down. All right, now the exhaust is on its way up. Okay, so now the intake's starting to move. So the intake's moving down, down. Remember, we want this rocker arm to go all the way down and then starting back on the way back up. So it's all the way down now. Okay, now it's starting to come up. Starting to come up. All right, so now we're about 3/4 of the way back up. Now you can do your exhaust valve. Okay, so the intake valve goes down 3/4 of the way back up. Now we set our exhaust lash. Okay, so let's see what our exhaust lash is. Look at that, it's at 4. Again, these were already set when I pulled the motor apart a year and a half ago. This car's been sitting for a year and a half, and so I'm getting to this stage. I'm pretty excited, because we're getting closer to turning the key on this thing. Wait till you hear this thing when it fires up. And it's got stainless. I did the exhaust system on the car. The hardest part of building this car is the exhaust system. I'll show you that when we get to it. So I did the getting ahead of myself, but it's because I'm getting excited because we're close. I mean, I got a little problem here with the gasket. I'm gonna clean this up with lacquer thinner, put 77B on it, put the valve covers on, let it sit overnight, and then I our next move is to put this motor in the car. Pretty cool. So anyway, so getting off the subject. Okay, so that's set for 4. So now number 1 cylinder, got the valve lash set. It's a little tighter than I like it. Normally I like it 5 and 5 or 6 and 6, but we're at 4. That's okay. As long as I got a gap in here, I'm good. So anyways, so turning this over, if you're to do number 2, this number 1 cylinder, we're to do number 2 cylinder, you do the same way. You do the same exact thing. You roll it over until the exhaust valve just starts to go down. So you roll it over, keep rolling it over. We're looking for this exhaust valve. When that exhaust valve just goes down, keep rolling. Okay, now it's just starting to go down now. Just a little bit. That's it. You want it just to start to go down. Now you can set the intake valve lash. Let's check this one. This one's the same way. I set this one for 4. Set this one for 4. Okay. So now the exhaust valve just has gone down. We checked the intake. We know we got 4 thousandths on our intake valve. So our intake valve is set. So to do the exhaust, same thing. So we roll it over, and this time, again, we're looking for the intake valve to go all the way down, and 3/4 of the way back up, we're going to do the exhaust. We're rolling over, the exhaust valve's going all the way down, coming back up. Now your intake valve is going down. Remember, you want this intake valve to go all the way down, and then it's got to start coming back up. 3/4 of the way back up. Now we can check our valve lash on the exhaust. Let's see what we got. Okay, this one's bigger. Okay, this one's at 6. So that's about where I like it. I like it at 6. So I'm gonna leave it, because when I fire this car up, I'm gonna have to go through all these again anyways. So this is good. So far, 1 and 2 is good. Okay. So you got the idea, right? Be able to do the valve lash on your own motor now? Because I'm going to check them all, but I don't want to bore you with it. So anyway, so you got the idea and the proper way to set the valve lash. And like I said, I do believe I'm sorry. I'm going to have to, when I set the valve lash and fix the little problem with the gasket here, I'm going to put oil in the motor, and then I'm going to prime it. I'm going to put oil in the motor, and I'm going to prime it, and I'm going to check the oil pressure with a mechanical oil gauge before it goes in the car. I'm gonna prime the motor, and I'm gonna make sure that I got the right amount of oil pressure that I should have before the motor goes in the car. As long as I got the right amount of oil pressure, being about at 600 RPMs, I want to be about 25 pounds. I'll tell you the reason why. Okay. I'll tell you the reason why. Okay. Sorry, it's a little cold in here. My nose is running. Several years ago, when I did another dyno session with this motor, like I said, this motor's been dynoed 5 times. On one of the dyno sessions, I was trying different camshafts, trying to get more power. On one of the dyno sessions, I had built the motor like I did now, where I switched out the camshaft. I think all I did was swap out a camshaft. No, I built the motor. Yeah, that's right. I built the motor, so complete motor build with a new camshaft. With when the manufacturer says, "Oh, this camshaft will make more power than the camshaft you got." Okay, so, anyways, I build the motor, and I took the motor over to a dyno. I don't normally go to. I got a guy that I go to that I like him. He likes me. We're very comfortable with each other. It was one of these guys that I asked the guy how much to do a dyno session. He said $600, and then when you're done with the dyno session, he wants like $1,200. You know the guys, kind of people that I'm talking about, right? Yeah. Well, I've never gone back to him. Anyways, needless to say, when I had the motor and the dyno, I couldn't get more than 35 pounds of oil pressure on it. And basically, when you're idling, you should be at 25. And if you're idling at 1,000 RPMs, you should be right around 25, maybe a little more. 2,000 RPMs, you should be at about 40. 3,000 RPMs, 50. 4,000 RPMs, 60. Somewhere along that, like for right around 4,000 RPMs, you should be at least 50 pounds. And so it should be something like that. Anyways, when I went to the dyno session, the motor wouldn't go over 33 pounds of oil pressure. Even if I was turning the motor up to 7 grand, it still couldn't get past 32 pounds of oil pressure. Now, normally you wouldn't, if you can't get over 30 pounds of oil pressure, normally you don't dyno it. Right? When we rev up the motor, and it doesn't want to go past 30 pounds. Normally you just say, hold, don't dyno. But this guy, the way this guy was, is if I was to say I don't want to dyno it, he's going to charge me the money anyways, because that's the kind of guy this was. You know the kind of guys that I'm talking about. So he was going to charge me for it anyways, even if I pulled it off just for his time of putting the engine on the dyno. So I made a bunch of pulls on it anyways. Made a bunch of pulls on it, and never even made anything close to the power that this camshaft made, not even anywhere close. And the camshaft was about an $800 dual pattern camshaft, and the latest and greatest, but it made 505 horsepower. That's what it made. This makes 575. That's how much of a difference a cam makes. So anyways, so I called up the person that made the oil pump. I don't remember if it was Miata or who it was. And I told him, what motor I got. And I told him that the motor doesn't want to go past 33 pounds of oil pressure. And I don't remember if it was Mallory or Miladon or which one it was. The guy says, well, try turning and screwing the oil pump. So okay, well, I'll try that. I hooked it up to the drill, turned in the screw. Didn't do nothing. So the guy says, well, you got a leak in your motor. Your oil's leaking down in the motor somewhere. You'll have to take apart the motor and figure out where it's bleeding through in the motor. And I told him, no, what I'm going to do is I'm going to try a different oil pump. And the guy was pretty persistent. Well, no, I think it's bleeding through your motor. I said, listen, so I'm going to try a different oil pump, because I'm not going to take this motor apart until I try a different oil pump. The guy said, okay, all right, we'll send one to you. Free. Yeah. So it's good. It's a good guy. So that sounds good. And he says, well, when you get the oil pump, call me and let me know what it was. So I got the oil pump in, put it in the motor, and it did exactly what it's supposed to do. I got 60 pounds out of it. So it was the oil pump. So I called him up and said, yeah, it's the oil pump. I said, okay, send the oil pump to me. I said, okay, send the oil pump to him. So from now on in, before the motor goes in the car, I make sure I got a 600 RPM drill. I put it in the motor with 10W, the braking BR30 driven braking oil, which is 5W30. The motor, I know at 600 RPM drill, I got 26 pounds. And it should be somewhere around there. If I don't get 26 pounds, then I want to pull the pan off, try a different oil pump. So that's why I got to prime the motor and check my oil pressure. Anyways, long story, but it's one of these things that you got to watch out for. And these are things you got to watch out for. A guy telling you that, you got a leak in a motor. Try to convince you to turn into your motor, and you're never going to find anything because it's not. It's the oil valve. Maybe the benefit of the doubt. Maybe in the past he's had that happen. But with the way I put my motors together, he's telling me I got my bearing clearance too loose or something. No. But anyways, so that's our next move is tomorrow to fix this little problem here with the valve cover, and then what I'll do, and this is how I put the oil in the motor, is and I'll show you that tomorrow, is I roll the motor up and I pour the oil all over the rocker arms, just like that, all over the rocker arms, but it's tipped up this way so it flows back down through the returns, and then put the valve cover on, and I roll the motor over to the other side, same thing, pour the motor oil over the rocker arms, so rocker arms are all covered in motor oil, valve springs are all covered in motor oil, everything's covered in motor oil, alright? So anyhow, so I'm gonna fix that valve cover gasket and go through the rocker arms, make sure they're where I want them at least 4,000 clearance between the valve lash, 4,000 clearance, and then I'll see you tomorrow. We're gonna put some oil in this thing and prime it up, make sure we got the right oil pressure. Okay, see you soon. Hello, it's John again. Okay, valve cover gaskets, I fixed them up, cleaned it with lacquer thinner, put 77B underneath the two little ends that I was having a little problem with. Put the valve covers on. So we gotta wait, let the Ultra Blue, I should say, not 77B. No longer says 77B, so the Ultra Blue Permatex, and so now I gotta let it sit overnight, and then I'll pull the valve covers off, and then tomorrow put the oil in the motor, and prime it, mechanical gauge on it, make sure we got the right oil pressure on it, and then flex plate bolted to the transmission, and we'll put it in the car. Anyway, so this is what I got now. This is what it looks like. So this is what it looks like. This is my valve cover. So kind of want to show you. Yeah, it says Ford Racing Boss 302. All right, it's my version of what I think a Boss 302 should be. Oh, you can't get these valve covers anymore. I think when they started making the Boss Mustang, you can no longer get the valve covers from SVO. So I looked for them on eBay, and nope, no such luck. So you can only wish to have them valve covers, but nope. It's only me that I know that has these valve covers. Anyways, pretty cool valve covers. Really neat looking. So like I said, it's my version of a Boss 302. This is what a Boss 302 should have been. And if I had it my way, every 95 Mazda Miata would have one of these in it. So well, we've come a long way. This Royal Purple oil filter. That's what I use. There's the, like I said, we come a long way with this motor. Long way. So this is what we got. Been a long time coming. This car's been sitting in the garage for a year and a half, waiting on parts. Crankshaft and connecting rods and everything else that I showed you. It's been a long time coming. So I'm getting pretty excited about it. So, tomorrow, tomorrow I'm gonna put some oil in it, put a mechanical gauge on it, prime it. When I checked my rocker arms, and basically I unbolted the rocker arms and bolted them back on, there was only one rocker arm that I had to adjust. Boy, that's pretty good. That's pretty surprising. And one rocker arm. It's hard to believe. All the rest of them were between 4 and 5 thousandths feeler gauge. That's how much valve lash I have between 4 and 5 thousandths. So that's good. If it's 4 thousandths, when it's 180 degrees, it'll be 14. 5 thousandths, it'll be 15 thousandths when it's 180 degrees. So that's goodness, right? Can't believe that. Anyways, anyways, that's where we're at. So I'll see you guys tomorrow.